Although even if Kraken is connected to the other modes in some way, so far there hasn't been any rooms that I've come across within Area 51 that may lead into the Aberrations area, as the door that appears before that boss fight isn't present within any of the other modes, but it's certainly possible that some type of connection for her will get added into the future. Sonic.exe Death Glitch. Now, we've talked about a few glitches on this iceberg already. The Killer Mutant glitch, the Jason's Chainsaw glitch, and there is still more to talk about later, but this one I feel is a little less known than the others, and while it doesn't really have an official name, none of the glitches in Sanctic have a name really, I like to dub this one the Sonic.exe Death Glitch, and it was present in the game for a short time during early 2019. This glitch would involve the killer Sonic.exe's body parts, for whatever reason, not disappearing properly in both Classic and Killer mode, and they would just lay that on the ground forever until the server got reset. For some context, whenever a killer dies nowadays within Sanctic, their body parts disappear shortly thereafter, which is done to remove lag, of course. Now, as far as I know, I'm actually the only person in Sanctic ever who's actually caught this glitch on camera, uploaded it to YouTube. And that's probably because it was only in the game for a couple of mere days before it was eventually patched by Homer. Makes you wonder how many other Sanctic glitches were out in the game at one point, but no one bothered to, record them. Although the memories I have of this glitch are vague, I can remember this bug being an absolute headache in Killer Mode servers, as the bodies caused a ton of lag when you got near a large number of them. But yeah, just another cool glitch in Sanctic's history, I suppose. Nothing super special. Beneath the Surface 2. So earlier in the iceberg, I mentioned Beneath the Surface, an old Roblox Area 51 story game that was developed and worked on by Homer Mafia 1. But did you know there was actually a planned sequel to the game that was in development after the success of the original? And, well, long story short, the game was never finished. Basically, what I think happened is that Homer left the Area 51 group sometime while the game was still being worked on, and the project simply could not be finished, as the game's description itself states that they are quote-unquote looking for developers to finish it. And yeah, the place itself hasn't been updated since 2019, so I doubt the game will be finished anytime soon, if ever. However, if you do want to go play it, you can buy quote-unquote early access to the game, although I would strongly discourage it, as Beneath the Surface 2 is very much broken, and you'll just be stuck in a looping hell of falling into the void forever. So yeah, don't bother wasting your Robux, I guess. Game Teleporters. One of Sanctic's lesser-known remove mechanics. Game teleporters were a feature within older versions of the game, which, like the name implies, teleported you to other games created and developed by Homer, such as Beneath the Surface, Escape Area 51, Humans vs. Zombies, among others. You can even find the decals that were used for these game teleporters still in Homer Mafia 1's inventory today, which is pretty cool. The screenshots and pictures I do have aren't the best quality, unfortunately, as there aren't many videos I can find left on YouTube that show these quote-unquote game teleporters still in action, as they were removed sometime during early 2017. But yeah, although they did offer the option to instantly teleport to Homer's other games because, looking up the places on Roblox search is overrated, I think you can see why they were removed, and I doubt we'll ever see them again. Survive Among Us in Area 51. No, this isn't a joke entry or anything. This is actually talking about another Area 51 fan game not made by Mafia 1, known as Survive Among Us in Area 51. A lesser-known fan game, I'd assume, as it being on the 4th layer and all. But why is this game so low on the iceberg? Well, let's just say that the thing that sets this game apart from other Area 51 games is the fact that this one completely stole Sanctic's map. No, I'm not joking. And I'm not talking about the underground base map. No, I mean they completely ripped the official Sanctic map by Homer Mafia 1. Well, an older version of it anyway. Even as the old sewers. Don't believe me? Well, how about the fact that all of the fan art is present in the exact same spot as the main game? In fact, it shouldn't be present here at all. And both the prison area and the teleporter room are here, which were both made by Homer Mafia 1 himself. Yeah, they just ripped the whole map by using a game-stealing exploit or something. It's pretty scummy if you ask me. Although thankfully Survive Among Us in Area 51 is very dead nowadays with an awful like-to-dislike ratio, this wasn't always the case, and at one point it was infamous for having completely botted servers, which eventually got its player count to surpass Sanctic's player count. Yeah, not joking, that's pretty bad. Similar incidents to this have happened in the past as well, such as MrNotSoHEro's Area 51, in which the developer stole many Sanctic rooms and locations to add to his own custom Area 51 map, without the proper credit. But yeah, you can still play Survive Among Us in Area 51 if you really want to. It's still up on Roblox, but yeah, would not recommend it. It's pretty awful. Let's just move on. Declining the Vicious Wraith. Like we mentioned on the iceberg earlier, the Vicious Wraith was an NPC that was introduced within the Halloween update of 2022, along with a quest and badge reward that was removed once the event ended. Of course, to attain the said quest, you just need to accept its challenge, but what if you decline the Vicious Wraith instead? what would happen? Well, curious players got more than they bargained for, as upon declining the Vicious Wraith's quest, they would be teleported to the previously mentioned Round 666 Easter egg, except in this instance were given no points to buy guns or doors with whatsoever. So yeah, you could imagine it was basically just an instant death as soon as you declined. I think this mini Easter egg within the Sanctic Halloween update was a pretty inventive way to troll players who went around looking for secrets. Of course, you could just go straight back to the game and accept his quest, but I don't know, I hope Homer does something like this again in the future. It was a pretty funny thing to watch. Zombie Bomb. The Zombie Bomb is an old, and I mean very old, experimental item that was added and then shortly removed from Sanctic sometime in late 2015 or early 2016. In fact, it was believed to only be in the game for a couple of days before it was never seen again. It's funny because the Sanctic community only really found out about the Zombie Bomb through the loading screen trivia text, which was added by Homer himself a whole 6 years after the item was removed from the game. When the Sanctic community eventually asked Homer himself about the removal of the item, he then confirmed that this is what the Zombie Bomb originally looked like in-game, and that it could be found in a secret area somewhere, probably by my guess somewhere in the radioactive area, as that's where zombies spawn in the main game, and zombies, Zombie Bomb, it makes sense. Homer has also stated that he recalls a video uploaded to YouTube once that shows a person getting and finding the Zombie Bomb. However, I, among many others, have looked and we can't find anything, so it's a safe bet to assume the video in question has long since been deleted. However, as most of you probably know by now, the Zombie Bomb was actually re-added into the game very recently. Well, kind of. It's in fact not a weapon that you can find around the map, but one of Captain Zombie's abilities, where he's able to throw a zombie bomb which causes zombies' hands to rise from the ground, which are able to trap players. It's actually a really cool ability. According to Humble Mafia 1 himself, this is actually how the zombie bomb originally functioned within the game, when it was still an item. Apart from the hands actually grabbing onto the players and keeping them in one spot, that wasn't a thing for some reason, and the zombie bomb killed killers, not players. But yeah, the zombie bomb is back in the game today, in some capacity at least, after almost a decade of being absent from Sanctic. And now you know the story of it too, from a removed weapon to a killer ability. Quite the life cycle, I must say. Smiley face in Aberration Room. During the Aberration boss fight, if Aberration manages to grab you via one of her many different attacks, she'll briefly take you to a small, blurry, mysterious room with a purple haze to it. This small room has 3 corridors to it, and 3 corrupted one killers. The goal is, of course, to avoid the corrupted ones for a certain amount of time until Aberration brings you back to the main boss fight room, and you can continue from there. Now, I think the purpose of this room is pretty obvious. It's supposed to be a little fun minigame side challenge thing, to distract yourself from the main Aberration boss fight. But if you actually take the time to look around this location, you might find something a little strange. Above each of these hallways and these corridors, if you squint hard enough, you can make out a very small red smiley face. Although it's much easier to see this while spectating, I don't think there's much more to this entry other than it being a neat little Easter egg. The Seeb incident. Alright, so this entry is going to get pretty messy with the information I currently have, but I'll try my best to explain everything as best I can since people kept asking for me to put this entry on the iceberg. Now, earlier in the video, of course, we mentioned Seeb, the first ever Sanctic player to reach 1 million kills within Classic mode, and he even had an entire custom in-game event themed around this achievement, which Humble Mafia 1 set up for him. However, unfortunately, all of this positivity that Seeb brought to the Sanctic game would be short-lived, as let's just say after the event was over, Seeb started taking a disliking to a lot of the members within the Sanctic community, for seemingly no reason. This whole drama began on the evening of March the 3rd, 2023, when Seeb reported to the Sanctic staff that the Sanctic developers, both Pexavilius and Mike, were planning to quote-unquote nuke the server. This was due to disagreements about certain staff missions with the server owner Warbird, and they wanted to get revenge. Thanks to Seeb, this nuke was prevented. Hex and Mike were originally banned from the Sanctic server, however were quickly unbanned, and along with Warbird, all 3 of them came to an agreement about the previously mentioned staff missions issue. And that's where the story could have ended. Seeb had stopped the destruction of the entire Sanctic Discord, and the rest of the server members and admins praised him for doing the right thing. And he definitely did do the right thing. However, the very next day, Seeb was demoted from his admin status for an undisclosed reason, as he proved to Subatomic Sam and the rest of the moderator team that he was unfit to be a member of staff. This angered Seeb immensely and caused him a great deal of distress, which eventually led him to taking the same path that both Hexavilius and Mike previously attempted by trying to nuke the server. Seeb, not being the sharpest tool in the shed though, informed other members of the community, who will remain nameless, of his plans. However, while Seeb believed that they were his allies, these members immediately reported Seeb's plan to the rest of the Sanctic Discord mod team, which then got him banned. And that's all the confirmed facts we have on the Seeb incident so far. But that's not where our story ends. But everything I'm about to talk about is still speculation, nothing is truly confirmed, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I thought it was worth bringing up because, well, it may or may not be true. Shortly after Seed was banned from the server though, Mike along with several other Sanctic Discord staff members were getting notifications from their inbox stating that both their Roblox and Google account passwords were suddenly being changed, indicating a possible breach by an unknown attacker. Of course the blame was put on Seed. I mean, all of this only happened after Seed was banned and his nuke on the server was unsuccessful, but again, like I just said, this is all speculation. A theory that I've seen being tossed around is that the breaches were a result of something else entirely. It's certainly possible, and Seed himself has responded to the allegations saying that he was apparently framed by somebody else, but until we get a definitive statement from him or whoever did this, nothing is truly confirmed. There are many people within the Sanctic community who now have a negative opinion on Seed. Even before the drama, he was disliked by a lot of the community for just being annoying. If you want my opinion on it, well, I think it's best to remain neutral in a situation like this. And while I did unfriend Seed myself amidst all this chaos, I want to let him know that I have nothing personal against him, and it was merely a precaution on my end. You know, I don't want to get hacked. I'd do the same if it was for any of my friends, really. But for all of you watching right now, please do not go and attack Seed or any of the Sanctic Discord moderator team. You can make up your own mind on the situation, of course. I just added this section into the iceberg to inform people about the drama, not to drag down Seed's reputation. If I have any updates, I'll leave them in the pinned comment. Tips Game Pass. This entry refers to a removed Game Pass that was purchasable for 10 tickets in older versions of Sanctic, simply known as Tips with the brackets, support my work. Although unlike other Game Passes within Sanctic at the time, this one didn't offer any content or value in-game, and was only there if people want to support Homo Mafia 1's work on the game. Although this isn't entirely true, as the Game Pass was eventually changed and rebranded into the Endless Survival Starter Game Pass we now know in the game today. So even players who did buy Tips to support Homo Mafia 1's work out of sheer kindness were eventually rewarded. Area 51 companies. This refers to the fictional made-up companies which are canon within the Sanctic lore. What do I mean by this? Well, if you look around the surface area of the game in classic or kill mode and speak to some of the soldiers walking around the base, you'll find that the trucks that they build in the workshop are actually manufactured by specific companies. These companies are known as Rogue, Peak, Omega, and Apex respectively, and you can even find what appears to be their logos on each of the trucks representing each company, which I have some high-quality versions of here. I don't think there's any deeper meaning to Area 51's companies besides these facts. I mean, you know, the developers probably just gave them a cool name, gave them a cool logo. I mean, the technology's got to come from somewhere, right? So, you know, they just made them up on the spot, I guess. They're just background elements. Sonic.exe Jump Scare. You're now one of Sanctic's many removed features, and as the name of this entry suggests, Sonic.exe actually used to have a jump scare, or a pop-up, similarly to Slenderman's pop-up we have in the game today, and this is what it actually would have looked like. You might have seen this jump scare in other Roblox horror games before as well. I'm guessing the reason for its removal was probably because having a ton of jump scares within Sanctic might have been a bit distracting. I mean, the only pop-up we have left in the game today is Slenderman, because, well, it's Slenderman. And also Sonic's jump scare might have been removed because the killer itself was later changed to no longer be able to instantly kill the player, so it makes sense for both reasons. Killers were cloned. Like I mentioned on the iceberg earlier with the zombie enemies spawning in groups of 3, every other killer within Classic and Endless Survival mode only spawns one of each, because, well, there can only be one of each killer in existence, right? Well, this wasn't actually always the case, and in older versions of the game, multiple versions of each of the killers in Sanctic would spawn in different parts of the map. What I mean by this is, let's say, for example, Ghostface. There'll be a Ghostface that spawns in the Double Doors area, there'll be a Ghostface that spawns in the Slender Cage, there'll be a Ghostface that spawns in the Sonic Room, and there'll be a Ghostface that spawns in the Cargo area. You get it makes sense. Of course, this feature didn't stick around for long, and it was removed in early 2016, and it's pretty obvious why. I mean, back then there were only like 4 different killers in the game, running around a huge map, so I guess Homer just decided to fill in the empty spots with clones of already existing killers until he could think of new ones to replace them. Yeah, imagine if this feature still existed in the game today, with like 5 Wendigos running around the base. Would not be fun at all. Hemmit Adam. A lot of people don't know this, but Homo Mafia 1 actually has a YouTube channel, simply known as Homo Mafia 1. It's linked on his Roblox profile, and at the time of recording only has 1 video available to watch. But what you may not know is that Homo Mafia 1 actually had a much older YouTube channel before its current one, known as Hemmit Adam. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name again. The reason why we know Homo Mafia 1 owns his account is due to a very old comment on Brett's 50 rounds video, in which he can be seen outright confirming that he is Homer, and also to add further evidence to the account being legitimate, there's also a space between both the sentence and the exclamation mark, which, if you don't know, is a trend commonly seen throughout Homer's punctuation all the time. It's even become a meme at this point. Now I know this one comment isn't damning evidence or anything, I get it. It's not, anyone can pretend to be anyone on the internet. But I don't know, I remember actually seeing videos on Hummer Mafia 1's old YouTube channel. You know, like a Beneath the Surface walkthrough, I think a video on Beneath the Surface 2 as well, a couple videos on other Roblox horror games, and I think, if I remember correctly,